The cabin smelled of smoke and pine sap. Caleb scrubbed at the blackened stones of the fireplace, the rag tearing under his hands. He worked in silence, counting the sparks that clung stubbornly to the hearth. The hammering of his own heartbeat drowned out the creak of the floorboards. Then came the knock. Sharp. Hesitant. A sound that didn't belong. Caleb froze. His eyes darted to the door, then back to the fireplace. Another knock, louder. His hand hovered over the rag, fingers trembling. He swallowed. "Who's there?" His voice was rough, low. The cabin answered only with a long groan, the walls settling around him. I'm Emily," a voice called softly, careful. Formal, almost brittle. Caleb's eyes narrowed. "Emily who?" Another pause. "The judge's daughter," she said. The words caught in the air, pressing against the soot-stained walls like an accusation. Caleb's lips pressed into a thin line. He didn't move. "You're far from home. What do you want?" The voice held a fragile weight, the kind that carried secrets. Emily stepped closer, and Caleb could hear the scuff of worn boots on the wood floor. "I need answers," she said. His fingers tightened around the rag, knuckles white. "Answers," he echoed. "From me?" She didn't nod. She didn't shake her head. She just stood there, tall, deliberate. The room shrank around them. Caleb's chest tightened. "I don't like visitors," he said finally. "I don't like being watched." "You don't even know me," Emily replied. Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it. "I don't need to," he snapped. He dropped the rag on the stone floor. Dust rose in a thin cloud, catching the last light of the afternoon. Silence pressed in between them. It was a silence heavy with past choices, with things neither wanted to name. A crow cawed outside. The sound scraped against the cabin walls. Caleb exhaled slowly, then gestured toward a chair. "Sit," he said. His voice was flat. Emily didn't move immediately. Her eyes roamed the cabin, flicking to the fireplace, the rusted badge hanging crooked above it, the stack of old, yellowed papers in the corner. She sat finally, careful. Her hands folded in her lap. Caleb went back to scrubbing the soot, but his mind was elsewhere, threading back to nights he didn't want to remember. Emily's gaze lingered on the badge. "Lawman once?" she asked quietly. Caleb didn't look up. "Once." The word felt like a wound opening. "What happened?" she asked. "Life," he said simply. Another silence. Outside, the wind shifted. The cabin shivered. Emily's eyes flicked to the window, where the shadows of the trees stretched long and crooked across the floor. "You keep things," she said. "Things people shouldn't see." Caleb stopped scrubbing. He rubbed his hands on his pants. "Things people shouldn't know," he corrected. Her eyes were steady now. "I'm not here to punish." "Not yet." Caleb's gaze caught hers. There was honesty there, but also something colder. "Punishment," he muttered, "has a way of finding everyone eventually." A long moment passed. Emily leaned forward slightly. "I didn't come for you to talk. I came to see for myself." "For yourself," he echoed, voice sharper than he intended. "You're bold," he said finally. Emily smiled faintly. No warmth, just acknowledgement. The rag lay forgotten on the hearth. Caleb's mind went to the rusted chest in the corner, locked tight for years. He thought of the letters tucked inside, of promises made and broken. Emily's presence tugged at the edges of memories he'd tried to bury. "Don't touch that," he said, jerking toward the chest. "I wasn't going to," she said. But she looked anyway. The floorboards creaked under her boots as she shifted. Caleb's fists clenched at his sides. The firelight danced across the walls, throwing long, uncertain shadows. He could feel the weight of every decision he'd ever made pressing against him. "Why now?" he asked quietly. "Because now is all we have," she said. Her words were calm, deliberate, but the tremor in her hands betrayed her. Caleb leaned back, rubbing his forehead. "You've opened a door you don't understand," he said. "I don't need to understand," she said, almost whispering. The room fell silent again, except for the crackle of the dying fire. He could smell the smoke, the pine, the old wood. Caleb felt something shift inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. A memory of loss. A memory of a night when the law failed him, and family was all he had left. Emily watched him carefully. "You can't hide forever," she said. He didn't answer immediately. His eyes traced the badge above the fireplace, the chest in the corner, the letters stacked neatly beside it. He had hidden behind walls and wood and fire for too long. The wind outside rattled the cabin door. Another knock. Caleb stiffened. Emily's eyes followed his. "Do you answer it?" she asked. He shook his head slowly. "I don't know anymore," he admitted. "Then we wait," she said. The room seemed smaller now, filled with unspoken truths, with the weight of choices neither of them had made but both were forced to reckon with. Caleb went back to the fireplace, tugging at a stubborn piece of soot. His hands shook, but he kept working. Emily's eyes remained on him, unwavering. The fire sputtered, sending a thin stream of smoke curling toward the ceiling. Caleb felt the heat on his face, the reminder of old guilt, old failure. "You always clean when you're afraid," Emily said softly. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Silence stretched between them, not empty but full, brimming with the tension of the past pressing on the present. Caleb's heart beat loudly in the cabin, in time with the sparks from the fireplace, the scratches of her boots, the soft shifting of the wind. And for the first time in years, he wondered if solitude had ever been real, or if it had only been waiting for someone to break it. Emily's hand brushed against a stack of papers. He flinched. "Careful," he said, voice low. "I said careful," she replied, almost teasing. "Not playful, not cruel, just a challenge." Caleb exhaled. He wanted to hate her for the audacity, but he couldn't. The cabin was full of ghosts, some living, some not, and now, for the first time, a new presence stirred the dust. The badge, the chest, the letters, they all seemed to lean toward her, drawn into the quiet gravity of her will. Caleb dropped to his knees by the fireplace, letting his forehead rest against the hearth. "You don't belong here," he said finally. "Maybe not," she replied. "But I do." The fire crackled. Shadows played across the walls. The cabin held its breath, and for the first time in a long time, Caleb did too. He did not know what would come next. He only knew it had already begun. The knock at the door came again, louder this time. He didn't move. Emily's eyes met his. "We face it," she said simply. He nodded, slowly, and the rag dropped fully to the floor. Smoke drifted toward the ceiling, curling in lazy spirals. The room smelled of pine and ash and quiet reckoning. And outside, the wind whispered, carrying with it the weight of things left unsaid, of memories that refused to stay buried, and of a visitor who had changed everything before a single question was answered. Caleb didn't sleep that night. He lay on the worn cot, listening to the wind press against the cabin walls, listening to the soft scuff of Emily moving around the room. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Every creak, every sigh carried its own weight. Finally, he sat up, rubbing his face with his hands. "You're not going to sleep, either," he said. She turned, leaning against the rough-hewn wall, arms crossed. "Not much to sleep for," she said. Her eyes held the moonlight coming through the window, pale and accusing. Caleb looked away. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "I already told you that." "I know," she replied. The words were soft but firm, like gravel grinding under boots. Caleb went to the chest in the corner, fingers hovering over the lock. "I shouldn't even have opened this," he muttered. "Shouldn't have had anything left to show you." Emily's gaze followed his hands. "But you did," she said. Her voice had no judgment, only recognition. Recognition cut sharper than anger. He shoved the chest closed. "You think you know me," he said, "but you know nothing." Then tell me, she said, stepping closer. Tell me everything. Caleb shook his head. He could feel the old ache in his chest, the same one that had kept him scrubbing the fireplace until his hands bled. Everything, he repeated. It'll take more than one night. Then start, she said, voice softening. I'm not leaving. Silence settled. The room seemed smaller. Shadows pooled in the corners. Caleb's mind drifted to the night his brother disappeared, the night Law and Luck had turned their backs on him. He could see the dark figure leaving, the wagon wheels cutting tracks into mud, the cries that had been swallowed by the wind. I hit him, Caleb said finally. Your brother? Emily asked, voice taut. Yes. She took a step back, her hands trembling slightly. Why? Because the law never did, he said. It wouldn't have saved him. I did what I could. Emily stared at him, silent. Her lips parted, then closed. I trusted the law, she whispered. And it betrayed everyone I cared about, he replied. Including you? Her gaze hardened. I'm not here for blame, she said. I'm here for truth. Caleb looked away, at the fireplace, at the smudged letters stacked neatly on the table. He remembered promises made in darkness, in haste, in fear. Truth isn't always clean, he said. It sticks to your hands. To your eyes. It smells like smoke and rot. Emily nodded slowly. Then I'll deal with it, she said. Her voice had steel in it now. Caleb felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in years, fear, maybe. Or respect. Or both. He stood, pacing slowly. You don't understand what it's like to carry it. To see every shadow and know it's waiting for you. Then let me see, she said, stepping closer again. Let me carry some of it too. Caleb stopped, staring at her. The firelight danced across her face, highlighting the set of her jaw, the determination in her eyes. You think you can handle this? He asked. I don't think. I know, she said simply. He exhaled, a long, shaky breath, then returned to the cot, sitting heavily. My father, he made it all worse, he said, almost to himself. Emily tilted her head. Your father? He was a sheriff once, Caleb said. Before the world burned down around him. Before it burned down me. And the people he failed, she asked. They haunt me, he admitted. Every night. Every choice. Every day I scrub walls, clean floors, try to erase it. But it doesn't leave. Emily stepped forward, resting a hand on the table near the letters. Some things you can't erase, she said. Some things you have to face. Caleb's gaze flicked to her hand, then back to the floor. You're brave, he said finally. Or foolish. She shrugged, a half-smile crossing her face. Maybe both. Another silence fell, heavy, full of ghosts and half-remembered nights. Caleb glanced at the badge above the fireplace. Rusted, crooked, almost mocking. Law, he muttered. It didn't protect anyone. Not him, not me. Emily's eyes followed the flicker of the fire. Then it's time someone did. You don't know what you're asking, he said. I do, she said. The conviction in her voice left no room for argument. Caleb ran a hand over his face, dragging it down. He could feel the tension, the old grief, twisting in his gut. You should leave before it gets worse, he said quietly. I can't, she replied. Not until I see it all. Not until I know it all. Caleb leaned back against the wall, eyes closing briefly. The wind rattled the cabin again. Emily's boots scraped softly as she moved toward the chest. Caleb opened his eyes sharply. Careful, he warned. I'm being careful, she said, almost teasing. Not playful. Not cruel. Just careful enough to challenge him. Caleb let out a low, humorless laugh. You have no idea what you're stepping into. Then show me, she said. Her voice was steady now, commanding even. Caleb's eyes went to the window, where shadows of the trees seemed longer, more twisted than they should be. "It's not just the past," he said. "It's everything the past left behind." "Then we face it," Emily said. He shook his head slowly. "I don't know if I can." "Then I'll carry part of it for you," she said. Caleb looked at her, really looked, and saw the determination, the fire, the threat in her calm. He could feel the weight of years pressing down, but for the first time in a long time, he did not feel entirely alone. "Fine," he said finally. "We start tomorrow." "We start now," she said. "Now," he echoed. The fire crackled, sending a thin stream of smoke toward the ceiling. Outside, the wind carried it all, the weight of the past, the uncertainty of the present, the inevitability of what would come next. Caleb ran a hand along the edge of the table, over the letters, over the chest, over the ashes of memories he had tried to bury. Emily's presence pressed into him like the sun, harsh and unyielding, refusing to be ignored. "Tomorrow," he whispered. "No." "Tonight," she said. The room seemed smaller, filled with the ghosts of his brother, his father, his own mistakes. And Emily, relentless, unyielding, demanding truth where there had only been silence. Caleb leaned against the wall, watching her. Watching the courage, the recklessness, the refusal to back down. And in that watching, he realized that nothing would ever be the same again. Not the cabin, not the past, not him. Emily moved closer to the fire, her face half lit by the glow. Caleb felt the stirrings of old fear, old guilt, and a fragile spark he hadn't known he still had, hope. The shadows stretched across the walls, the cabin held its breath, and the night deepened, heavy with unspoken truths and memories that refused to stay buried. Caleb sat by the hearth, staring at the badge above the fireplace. The metal had dulled over years of smoke and neglect, but it still caught the firelight in sharp glints. Emily leaned against the wall opposite him, arms crossed, boots scuffing the floor. "You wore it once," she said. Her voice cut the quiet, steady, precise. Caleb didn't look up. "Once," he muttered. "And it made things worse." She moved closer, tilting her head. "How?" "You want the story?" he asked, voice low, rough. "I want the truth," she replied. He exhaled sharply. The badge meant law. Law meant nothing. It killed more than it saved. "My brother, my father," his hands clenched in his lap. Emily's eyes followed the tremor of his knuckles. "You let him die." Caleb flinched. "I saved what I could," he said. "You can't undo it." She took a slow step closer, unafraid. "Then you tell me what happened. Every lie, every secret. I can take it." He laughed, humorless. "You have no idea." "Try me," she said. The firelight danced across her face, casting shadows that made her look older than she was, harder. Caleb's jaw tightened. "The law came, the law left, and people suffered. My brother went missing because I couldn't protect him. Because the law turned its back." "And you?" she asked softly. "I turned my back too," he admitted. Her eyes narrowed. "You hid him." "Yes," he said, leaning back, voice heavy. "I hid him to keep what was left. I thought I was doing right. But the world doesn't care about right. Not here." Emily's gaze flicked to the stack of letters on the table, yellowed edges curling from age. "You wrote to him?" Caleb's hands twitched. "I tried. Once. Twice. It never mattered. Letters don't save anyone." Silence stretched. The cabin groaned under the weight of its own history, the creaking walls carrying their memories. Emily moved closer to the badge. Her fingers hovered near it. Caleb's voice snapped. "Don't touch it." She stepped back, hands raised. "I'm not here to destroy. I want to understand." Caleb shook his head. "Understanding comes at a price." "I'll pay it," she said. His eyes, dark and haunted, met hers. "You'll pay more than you know." The fire crackled, shadows stretching and twisting across the walls. "What did it feel like," she asked quietly, "to wear the badge?" Caleb's hand hovered above the hearth. Like carrying fire in my chest. Like knowing I could punish, protect, save, and fail all at once. Did you fail? She asked, stepping closer again. Every time, he admitted. His voice was almost a whisper. And yet you survived. Barely, he said. And this cabin? It's proof. I've been hiding behind walls, behind soot, behind fire. Emily's gaze shifted to the letters. And still, you didn't run? Caleb shook his head. Running doesn't erase ghosts. Not here. Not ever. Another silence. Only the fire spoke, sputtering and hissing in the hearth. Emily crossed the cabin slowly, boots dragging over the floorboards. Then we face it, she said. Every word, every lie, every truth. Caleb studied her, weighing the weight of her conviction. You're bold, he muttered. Or foolish. Maybe both, she replied. Maybe both, he repeated, voice rough. Shadows flickered over the walls, and Caleb could see the badge glint in the firelight like a silent witness to all that had passed. Emily's eyes followed the reflection, sharp and unblinking. Do you regret it? She asked. Every day, he said. And yet I can't change it. Can't undo what's done. Then we make it matter, she said. Caleb's shoulders slumped slightly. It's not just the past, he said. It's every choice after. Every step you take. You carry ghosts with you. Every one of them has claws. Then I'll carry some too, she said, voice firm. Caleb looked at her and for the first time, the fear he'd felt at her arrival seemed less pressing, replaced by a strange, fragile trust. The badge, he said, gesturing toward it. It doesn't mean law anymore. It means the weight of what I couldn't protect. Emily's gaze softened just slightly. Then let it mean something else, she said. He laughed, harsh and bitter. It's too heavy for that. Then we share it, she replied. Caleb's hand went to the hearth, letting the heat wash over him, grounding him. Emily stepped closer, closer still. You're not alone, she said. Caleb's eyes met hers. I don't know how to be otherwise, he admitted. The fire crackled, sending sparks into the air. Shadows danced across walls and ceiling. The cabin seemed to close in, but not in a way that frightened him. In a way that forced honesty, demanded confession. He looked at the letters. The chest. The badge. Everything he'd hidden. Tomorrow, we start uncovering it all, he said. Tonight, Emily corrected, moving toward the chest. Tonight we start. Caleb's heart beat faster, a mixture of fear and anticipation. Fine, he said. He didn't move to stop her. The fire flickered, casting long, jagged shadows across the cabin. Caleb leaned back against the wall, watching her. Watching courage and recklessness, determination he hadn't seen in years. The badge above the fireplace gleamed in the light, a reminder of past authority, past failure. Emily reached toward it, fingers brushing close, and Caleb held his breath. Careful, he said. I know, she replied, calm, steady, unafraid. And in that moment, the cabin felt alive with memory, with fire, with unspoken truths pressing against the walls. Caleb's hands rested on his knees. He exhaled slowly. The fire crackled. Shadows twisted. Silence stretched, heavy and full, carrying the weight of the past into the present. Emily's presence pressed into him, insistent and unyielding. And Caleb realized that whatever came next, it had already begun. The badge glimmered, the fire spat sparks, and the ghosts of choices past whispered across the walls, waiting for the reckoning that would not, could not, be delayed. The cabin was quiet, but not empty. Shadows stretched across the walls, curling like fingers over the old wooden beams. Caleb sat by the hearth, staring into the fire, letting its warmth wash over him, even though it did little to chase the chill in his chest. Emily moved around the room slowly, her eyes tracing the edges of furniture, the corners where shadows clung, the small signs of life Caleb had left behind. They're watching us, she said suddenly, voice low. Caleb didn't move. Who? Your family, she said. This land. The ones you left buried. He blinked, looking toward the fogged window, where the shapes of trees pressed against the glass like silent witnesses. They don't speak, he said finally. But you can feel them. Emily stepped closer to him, her boots silent on the floorboards. I can, she said. And it's not just them. Caleb's jaw tightened. It never is. Another silence stretched between them, the fire crackling, sending sparks into the room that vanished almost instantly, like fleeting memories. Emily's eyes fell on a broken well outside the cabin. Its edges jagged, shadows pooling inside it. I see it, she said softly. Caleb's gaze followed hers. The well had been there since before he'd moved in, a place of stories, of whispered warnings, of nights spent thinking it would swallow secrets whole. Some things you hide don't stay hidden, he said. Not here. Not ever. Emily moved to the letters stacked on the table. The past presses hard, she said. Caleb didn't look at her. His mind drifted, back to his childhood, to the night his father had disappeared into the woods, leaving him and his brother to find their own way. You weren't ready for him, Emily said, reading the unspoken thought in his posture. Caleb's hands tightened on his knees. No, he admitted. Not then. Not ever. The fire hissed, sending a thin stream of smoke curling to the ceiling. Emily leaned against the wall, silent for a moment, letting him breathe, letting the room fill with old grief and new presence. I hear them, she said finally. Even when it's quiet. I know, he said. His voice low, rough. I hear them too. Another pause. The creak of the floorboards, the settling walls, the faint whistle of wind outside, it all seemed alive, watching, judging. Emily's eyes drifted to a stack of letters near the hearth. You kept these? Caleb nodded slowly. All of it. Every word, every memory, every failure. Why? She asked. So I could remember who I am, he said. So I could see what I lost. And so I could try to make it right. She stepped closer, boots scraping softly. And have you? Caleb's hands fell into his lap. Some days, maybe, he admitted. Some days, nothing at all. Emily watched him, her eyes steady. The ghosts don't leave, she said. But maybe they can guide you. Or warn you. Or make you listen. Caleb laughed softly, bitter. Listen? I've listened my whole life. Too much. Never heard the right thing. Emily's gaze softened. Maybe that changes. He looked at her, really looked, and felt the weight of her presence pressing in, gentle but insistent. Do you see them too? He asked. All of them, she said, voice low. Watching. Waiting. Knowing. Caleb exhaled, leaning back. I thought I was alone. You never were, she said. Not here. Not in this cabin. Not on this land. Silence fell again, heavy, but different. Not empty. Full of memory, full of watching, full of things neither could yet name. Caleb stood, walking to the window. He pressed his palm against the glass. Outside, the graves of old families, old mistakes, old promises lingered under the moonlight. Emily joined him, standing quietly beside him. They're quiet now, she said. But they're not gone. I feel them, he admitted. Every night. Every day. Every choice I've made. And they'll follow me, even if I try to hide. Emily's hand brushed his briefly, a touch meant to steady, not comfort. Then we faced them, she said. All of them. Caleb turned, letting the firelight fall across his face. You don't know what that means, he said. I know, she replied. It means reckoning. Truth. Sometimes pain. He nodded slowly. You're right. But it's a long night ahead. Emily's eyes glinted, pale in the firelight. Then we start now, she said. The fire crackled, sending a thin arc of sparks up to the ceiling. Caleb could hear every creak, every sigh of the cabin, every whisper of the wind outside. It all pressed in, all watching. All waiting. What happens if we fail? He asked. Then we learn, she said. Or we die. He exhaled slowly. You have a way with words, he said, half laughing, half sighing. And a way with courage, she said, meeting his gaze steadily. I hope it's enough. Caleb turned back to the letters, the badge, the chest in the corner. Every object held a memory, every shadow held a story. Emily's presence, quiet but demanding, pressed against the past, against the silence he had carried for decades. Tomorrow, he muttered. Tomorrow we start. No, she said softly. Tonight. Caleb's shoulders slumped slightly, but he didn't argue. He could feel it, the weight of ancestral eyes, of memory-laden walls, of ghosts pressing in, and the fire burning between them. Then we start, he said finally, voice low, admitting more than he intended. Outside, the wind shifted, rattling the cabin door. Inside, shadows leaned closer, listening. Emily's gaze swept the room, noting every corner, every object, every silence. Caleb sank into the chair, letting the fire's heat chase some of the chill away. Not alone, he said quietly. Not anymore, she replied. The fire spat sparks. Shadows danced across walls and floor. The cabin breathed with them, heavy with unspoken truths, haunted by memory, alive with the weight of the past pressing into the present. Caleb's hands rested on his knees. He felt the ghosts, felt the history, felt Emily's presence, steady, unyielding. And in that crowded silence, he realized the reckoning had begun. The wind rattled the cabin door, cold and sharp. Caleb tightened his coat and walked toward the window, squinting through the gray haze of evening. He's coming, Emily said, voice low but steady. Caleb didn't move at first. Who? The judge, she said, watching his reaction. His hand went to the edge of the table, gripping it tightly. I won't let him drag me back, he said, voice rough. He won't try, she replied. You think so? Caleb muttered, more to himself than to her. Emily shifted, boots scraping softly against the wooden floor. He's coming. He always comes when the past isn't finished. Caleb exhaled slowly, his eyes following the distant ridge where the wind lifted dust in a thin, gray ribbon. I've been hiding for years. Why now? Emily stepped closer. Because the law doesn't forget. And neither does your family. My family? He echoed. The one you failed, the one you promised to protect? She didn't wait for an answer. She moved to the fireplace, brushing ash from her fingers, letting the dust swirl into the air. The judge isn't just a man. He's a shadow, she said. And shadows don't need permission to fall. Caleb's eyes flicked to the badge on the wall. Rusted, crooked. A reminder of authority he had once worn proudly. He doesn't care about truth, Caleb said, voice low. He never has. Then we make him care, Emily said. Her tone left no room for argument. Caleb shook his head, pacing. You don't understand what he's capable of. He'll tear everything apart. I'm not afraid, she said. Caleb stopped mid-step, hands on his hips. Not afraid, he asked, voice incredulous. You don't know him. You don't know the weight of what he carries. Then I'll bear some of it with you, she said, stepping closer. The fire flickered, throwing shadows across the walls, across the faces of old letters and the chest in the corner. Caleb's shoulders slumped slightly. I thought I could outrun it, he admitted. But the judge, he doesn't let anything go. Not debts, not promises, not sins. We face him, Emily said. Together. Caleb's hands trembled slightly as he rubbed them against his coat. It's not that simple. Emily crossed her arms, her eyes sharp. Nothing in this cabin, nothing in this valley, has ever been simple. Not your choices. Not mine. Not the past that haunts you. Caleb glanced toward the window again. He could see the faint shape of a rider cresting the hill, silhouetted against the dim sky. There, he muttered. Emily's lips tightened. I see him. I've seen enough to know what's coming. Caleb clenched his fists. If he finds out about the letters, the chest, everything, it'll be over. Not just for me. Not just for you, she agreed. Then we fight, he said finally, voice low and tense. We leave, Emily said. Or we fight, he repeated, glancing toward her. I didn't come for answers to run, she said. Then stay, he said, voice rough. But don't expect mercy from the world. Emily's eyes softened just slightly. I don't need mercy. I need truth. Caleb turned back to the fire, letting the heat wash over his face, letting the shadows dance over the walls. Truth comes at a cost, he said. You understand that? I do, she said firmly. Caleb exhaled slowly, rubbing his face. Then we prepare, he said, voice low. He walked to the chest in the corner, feeling its weight beneath his hands. Emily watched, silent, waiting. The wind rattled the cabin door again, and Caleb could feel it pressing against the wood, a cold warning. He's closer than you think, Emily said. Caleb nodded. I can see that. I can hear him in the valley. The fire sputtered, sending a thin arc of sparks into the air. Caleb's gaze flicked to the letters stacked neatly beside the chest. Everything I try to bury, it will all be exposed. Emily's hands rested lightly on the table, near the letters. Then we face it, she said. Caleb looked at her, really looked, and saw the same determination he had first noticed when she entered the cabin. No fear. Only resolve. Fine, he said finally. We face it. He went to the window again, watching the writer grow larger as the wind carried dust and debris across the ground. Emily joined him, stepping close, shoulder to shoulder. Do you trust me? He asked quietly. I trust you to do what's right, she replied. Caleb's lips pressed into a thin line. That may not be enough. Then it's all we have, she said, voice low but unwavering. Caleb leaned back slightly, letting the tension drain a little from his shoulders. He exhaled slowly. You've changed everything, he admitted. And nothing, she said. Both at once, he muttered. The writer crested the hill fully, the outline of a broad-brimmed hat visible now, the weight of authority unmistakable. Caleb's hand rested on the edge of the table, fingers brushing the letters. This ends tonight, he said. Emily's eyes scanned the cabin, taking in the chest, the badge, the fire, the shadows. Then we make it matter, she said. Caleb nodded. We face him, he repeated, voice low, almost a whisper. Outside, the wind whistled through the trees. The cabin held its breath. Shadows leaned close, listening. The fire crackled, sending a thin ribbon of smoke toward the ceiling. Caleb and Emily stood side by side, ready, though neither fully knew what the night would demand. The judge's shadow pressed down from the hill, silent but absolute. Caleb's fingers brushed the badge, then the letters. Emily's hand rested lightly on the table. Together, she said. Caleb exhaled, slow and deliberate. Together, he echoed. Outside, the wind carried the weight of the past, of authority, of everything they had tried to hide. Inside, the cabin was alive with memory and reckoning. And the shadow of the judge waited, patient, unyielding, for the moment when silence would break, and the truth would be forced into the open. The fire burned lower now, casting long, trembling shadows across the cabin walls. Caleb sat close to it, elbows on knees, staring into the glowing embers. Emily moved near the hearth, kneeling slightly, her fingers brushing a fallen letter on the floor. You lied to me, she said suddenly, voice sharp but quiet, cutting through the low crackle of the fire. Caleb's head snapped up. I lied to survive, he said, voice raw, almost breaking. To hide what? She pressed, leaning closer. He shook his head. Everything. My brother. My family. The law. The judge. I hid it all. Emily's eyes narrowed, but she didn't pull back. And I trusted you, she said softly. I trusted the law, not men. And you chose yourself. Caleb's jaw tightened. I chose what I thought would keep anyone alive. Even if it meant burning myself in the process. Silence hung over them, thick and heavy. The fire flickered, ash drifting like tiny ghosts. Emily brushed it aside. "Do you think that excuses it?" she asked. Caleb looked at her, shadows crossing his face. "No. But it explains why. Not right, not clean. Just survival." She exhaled slowly, shoulders relaxing slightly. "Then tell me everything," she said, voice steady. "No gaps. No half-truths." Caleb rubbed his face. His hands shook slightly as he leaned back, letting the heat warm his fingers. "I tried to write to him. To my brother. The letters. I thought if I said enough, the world would notice. It didn't. Nobody came. Nobody cared." Emily's eyes glistened, but she stayed silent, letting him speak. "I hid him when they came. I couldn't trust anyone to protect him. Not the sheriff. Not the judge. Not me. I thought I was saving something that mattered. I was just delaying the grief. And yet here you are," Emily said softly. "And here I am," Caleb admitted, voice low, almost a whisper. "I thought I could shoulder it alone. I was wrong." The fire cracked sharply, a shower of sparks hitting the floor. Caleb flinched, then exhaled slowly. "I'm sorry," he said. "For everything. For hiding. For failing. For letting it get this far." Emily knelt beside him, eyes steady, unblinking. "It's not just you," she said. "It's the law, the judge, the world that let this happen. But you carry the weight. And now you can share it. If you want." Caleb's gaze fell to the fire. "I never wanted anyone else in it," he admitted. "Never thought anyone could stand the truth." "I can," she said, voice firm. "And I will." He exhaled again, long and slow, letting the confession spill into the room, into the fire, into the shadows. "I thought about ending it all," he said quietly. "When he came for us. When everything fell apart." Emily reached for his hand, hesitating, then grasped it gently. "And you didn't," she said. "No," he said, voice rough. "I didn't. Not yet. Not with you here." The cabin walls seemed to lean closer, listening, as if the fire itself held its breath. "I want to understand it all," she said. "Every choice. Every mistake. Every lie." Caleb nodded slowly. "Then stay," he said. "Stay and listen. Stay and feel it. Because the weight, it's heavier than you know." Emily's fingers tightened slightly on his. "I'll bear it," she said. "If you let me." He looked at her, really looked, and saw no fear in her eyes. Only patience, only determination. "Then bear it," he said, voice low but resolute. "Bear it with me." The fire sputtered again, sending sparks toward the ceiling. Caleb's hands rested on the floor, steadying himself. "The letters," he said. "They hold everything. The past. The guilt. The nights I prayed nobody would find out." Emily reached for the letters, lifting one carefully. "And now?" she asked. "Now," he said, exhaling slowly, "we face it. All of it. No more hiding." Her fingers brushed over the paper, careful, reverent. "Then let's start," she said. Caleb's eyes met hers, a mix of relief, fear, and something like hope reflected in the flickering firelight. "We start," he repeated. Shadows stretched across the walls, and the cabin seemed alive with memory, confession, and the weight of unspoken truths. Caleb could feel the ghosts pressing in, old regrets and ancestral eyes watching, waiting. Emily remained calm, steady, a presence that could hold the room together. "Do you trust me?" she asked quietly. "I do," he said, voice low. "Then let's make it right," she said. Caleb nodded slowly, letting the fire's heat chase some of the chill from his chest. The letters lay between them, ashes of the past and sparks of reckoning. Everything, he said. No secrets left. Emily's lips pressed into a thin line. Everything, she confirmed. Caleb leaned back, letting the room's shadows swallow him slightly. You've changed it, he said. I know, she replied softly. And nothing, he said. Both at once, she added. The fire spat a small shower of sparks, each one catching in the air for a moment before fading. Caleb's hands brushed over the letters, over the ash, over the chest. Emily's presence pressed into the room, constant and unyielding. Tomorrow, he said. Tonight, she corrected. He closed his eyes briefly, letting the weight of confession sink in. Then tonight, he agreed. Silence settled over the cabin, not empty, but full of reckoning, of memories, of the heat and light of fire, and of the fragile bond forming in the midst of long-buried truth. Caleb's heart beat steadily now, alongside the crackle of flames, alongside the presence of someone willing to bear it with him. And in that heavy silence, both knew the confessions were only the beginning, that nothing would ever be the same again. The morning air was thin and sharp, carrying the scent of pine and wet earth. Caleb stood at the edge of the ridge, looking down the valley where the river cut deep grooves into the land. Emily approached quietly, boots crunching over frost-hardened leaves. You thinking about leaving? She asked. Caleb didn't answer immediately. His jaw tightened. Every choice I've made has brought me here, he said finally. Every step led to this crossroads. Emily's eyes followed his gaze down the valley. And which way is right? She asked softly. There is no right, he admitted. Only what we survive. She nodded. Then we survive together, she said. Caleb turned, meeting her eyes. You really mean that? I mean it, she replied firmly. A crow cried from the trees below, its wings slicing the cold air. Caleb's fingers brushed over the badge tucked into his coat. Every decision now will echo, he said. If we move wrong, it'll cost more than our pride. Emily stepped closer. We've paid the cost already, she said. It's time to decide what matters next. Caleb exhaled slowly, eyes on the distant tree line where the shadows of the judge's men might already be moving. I've never had someone beside me for a choice this big, he said. Not for a long time. Emily reached for his hand. Then don't. Not alone. Not now. He let her hand stay in his, warmth against cold, presence against weight. You trust me? She asked quietly. Caleb nodded. I do. Another pause. Then we go, she said. Caleb looked down the ridge, where two paths split, one narrow and steep, carved into the rock, the other gentler but winding into shadowed woods. Which one? He asked, voice low. Both, she suggested. Both leads to danger, he said. And both may lead to truth. Emily's lips pressed into a thin line. Then we take the one that hurts least, she said. Caleb laughed softly, darkly. There's no path that hurts least. Then we take the one that's ours, she replied. The wind whipped against the ridge, tugging at coats and hair. Caleb glanced back at the cabin, small against the expanse of mountains. Everything begins and ends there, he said. The letters, the fire, the ghosts, everything. Then we leave it behind, Emily said. Or we carry it with us, he countered. I'd carry it with you, she said simply. Caleb's eyes softened, and he felt a flicker of hope amidst the heavy cold and weight of choice. We're not just walking into danger, he said. We're walking into reckoning. Then we keep our eyes open, she replied. He nodded. And our hands ready, he added, voice low. Emily's eyes flicked to the distant ridge where movement hinted at the judge's approach. We don't get a second chance, she said. Caleb ran a hand over his face, feeling the strain of years pressed into muscles and bones. No. One shot, he muttered. And we take it together. Another silence fell, filled only by wind and the distant crash of river water against rock. Caleb's gaze shifted back to the paths. We leave at first light, he said. Before they know. Emily nodded. And the cabin? It stays, he said. It'll watch. It always has. Her hand lingered briefly in his. Then it settled, she said. Together, at the crossroads. Caleb's breath formed mist in the air. He looked to her again, seeing resolve, seeing courage, seeing someone willing to follow him into fire and shadow. Ready? He asked. I was born ready, she said, lips tight. The ridge felt alive beneath their boots, trembling slightly as if the mountain itself were warning or urging them forward. Caleb exhaled, feeling the weight of every choice, every ghost, every wrong step behind him. Then we go, he said, gripping her hand firmly. Emily returned the grip, matching his strength. Step by step, she said. Caleb's eyes swept the valley once more, taking in the river, the forest, the shadowed paths that would carry them forward. Step by step, he echoed. The wind whipped past them, cold and insistent, as if testing their resolve. Caleb tightened his coat and shifted his weight. Whatever waits, he said, we face it. Emily's gaze met his, steady, unwavering. We face it together, she said. Caleb nodded, letting the truth of her words sink in. Every past failure, every hidden secret, every letter, every ember of fire, they all pressed against the back of his mind. The paths below waited, silent and patient. The shadows stretched long, and Caleb could feel the judge's presence looming, the law and vengeance pressing closer. No turning back, he said. Emily's lips curved slightly. Never again, she replied. Together, they stepped forward, boots crunching against frost and stone, hearts beating with anticipation and fear. The mountains seemed to watch, silent witness to their choices. The valley opened before them, steep and treacherous, full of danger and reckoning. Caleb inhaled sharply, feeling the weight of the past settle into his bones. Emily's hand tightened slightly in his. We decided now, she said. Caleb exhaled, nodding slowly. We decided now. The wind carried their breath into the morning. The ridge held them, the paths waited, and the mountain watched as two figures stepped into their fate, shoulder to shoulder, heart to heart, ready to face what the crossroads demanded. The valley lay before them, white and shadowed, the river cutting silver through the darkness. Caleb and Emily stepped carefully over rocks and frost-bitten grass, boots crunching in near silence. There, Emily whispered, pointing toward a faint light near the trees. The judge's men. Caleb nodded, fingers tightening around the leather strap of his coat. We make no mistakes, he muttered. Emily's eyes were sharp, scanning the shadowed figures, noting every glint of metal and every posture. We don't, she said, tone firm. They moved closer, keeping low, letting the rocks and trees hide them. Do you remember the letters? Caleb asked quietly. Emily glanced at him, expression steady. Every word. They'll change everything if we show them, he said. Then show them, she replied. Caleb's jaw tightened. Are you sure? I've never been surer, she said. The first figure came into view, a man in a dark coat, wide-brimmed hat shadowing his eyes. Caleb's fingers brushed the badge in his pocket. The weight of it pressed against his palm, a reminder of authority lost and power misused. He's waiting, Emily said softly. I can feel it. Caleb exhaled slowly, letting the tension roll off him in a long, rough breath. Then we go, he said, voice low. Step by step, they approached the camp, the shadows of the men stretching across the ground. Caleb's heart thumped in his chest, every muscle tight with anticipation. Emily's hand brushed against his briefly. Ready? She asked quietly. As I'll ever be, he replied. One of the men noticed them first, stepping forward, hand resting on the hilt of a gun. Who's there? His voice cut the quiet, sharp as a whip. Caleb raised his hand slightly, careful, steady. We mean no harm, he said. Emily stepped beside him, eyes blazing. But the truth comes first. The man's gaze flicked to her, then back to Caleb. The judge will want to hear this, he said. Caleb's lips pressed into a thin line. Then let him. The figure moved back, calling over his shoulder. He's coming. Now. Caleb's chest tightened. Emily's hand rested lightly on the letters in his pocket. Do you have them? She whispered. Everyone, he said. They stood together, waiting. From the trees emerged the judge, tall and commanding, eyes cold and hard. Caleb, he said, voice sharp. You've hidden long enough. I hid to protect, Caleb replied, voice steady. From what? The judge demanded. From you. From the law you swore to uphold. From myself. Emily stepped forward, holding the letters in her hand. Everything's here, she said. Every secret, every lie, every wrong. The judge's eyes narrowed, taking in her presence, the letters, the tension pressing into the valley. You think this absolves you? He asked. No, Caleb said. But it forces truth. The wind carried dust and leaves around them. The judge's men shifted, watching, waiting. Emily's voice was steady, cutting through the tension. We carry it together. Caleb and I. And now the world sees it too. The judge's lips pressed into a thin line. You dare defy me? He asked. Caleb's jaw tightened. I dare show the truth, he said. Emily held the letters high, letting the flickering firelight from the camp lanterns catch on the paper. All of it, she said. The judge's hand twitched near his coat, reaching for something unseen, a habit of authority. Caleb's fingers brushed the badge in his pocket. The weight of it burned against his skin. We're not asking, Emily said. We're stating. A tense silence stretched across the valley, broken only by the rustle of trees and the distant cry of a crow. Caleb exhaled slowly. It ends tonight, he said. One way or another. The judge's shadow fell long across the frost-bitten grass. You will regret this, he said, voice low but cold.